Good evening. Welcome to the Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, March 28th. And I think just looking around the audience, this is probably one of the safest council meetings we've ever held. And thank you all for being here in terms of the safety awards we're going to have tonight from the American Legion. Dee, why don't you take roll?
Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Present.
Councilmember Dubin.
Here.
Councilmember Guido.
Here.
Councilmember Bacall.
Here.
Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Under announcements tonight, first of all, we'd like to recognize the American Red Cross. March is the Cross Month, so we've issued a proclamation for that, basically saying their support, volunteer, and generous donations are critical to our community's resilience. We hereby recognize this month of March in honor of all those who fulfilled Clara Barton's noble words, "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it," and ask everyone to join with this commitment, honoring the American Red Cross. And I can tell you, I've been on a number of different police and fire scenes, and people have lost their residents. It's always really nice when we can call the Red Cross and they can come and take care of the individuals who have lost their homes. Other announcements tonight, we want to welcome all WSU families who will be arriving soon for another exciting spring family weekend starting Friday. We appreciate all our city staff, all the departments who contributed resources to help make this weekend safe. Pullman is recognized for the 26th time as a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation. Effectively managing and caring for our city's urban forest has been a consistent point of emphasis, and we thank you, our Parks Department, Maintenance and Operation Team, and others who contribute to helping earn another Tree City honor. Currently, applicants are being accepted for two commissions, the Arts Commission and the Civil Service Commission. If interested, please contact the Boards, Commissions, and Committees page on our website, and you can learn more. Crews are still conducting spring sweeping across the city. You can be sure to check our social media channels for where and when the street sweepers will be in your area. Make sure you sweep the small natural debris onto the roadway from your sidewalks. Make sure garbage cans are not in the way of the street sweepers, and if you can move a car, that'd be full as well. You can always tell when the street sweepers are out there and where cars have been parked, because they can't sweep where the cars have been parked. Also, our friends at the Pullman Community Council on Aging provide meals to all, anyone 18 over, every Tuesday and Friday at the Senior Center. You can check the meal menu on our Senior Center webpage. For more information, you can call our Senior Activities Coordinator. We've got several egg hunts coming up. The Underwater Egg Hunt coming up on April 7th from 5 to 8 p.m. Games, prize will be part of the fun. Please call the Parks and Recreation Department at 509-338-3227 to register. And also, the 62nd Annual Egg Hunt will take place at Krugel Park on April 8th at 10 a.m. We thank our Parks and Recreation Department, our Aquatic Center, Kiwanis Club for their outstanding job they do in putting together the annual egg hunt, the fastest egg hunt in the history of egg hunts, I think. It takes place rather quickly. Our next item on the agenda tonight is confirmation of appointment. I am recommending to the council that Sean Wells be appointed as the Public Works Director. And I appreciate hearing a motion on that.
So moved. Second.
Moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I know that he watched at least 4 months worth of Pullman City Council meetings. So I'm sure he's watching tonight. And Sean, you've just been confirmed. Okay. Now maybe you can take a breather. Our next item on the agenda tonight is basically the American Legion Maynard Price Post 52 Law and Order Awards. And Commander Jerry Corker is here along with Ted Welling. And that's another reason why you see a number of law enforcement and firefighters here tonight, because there are a number of awards and all well-deserving. And thank you again, American Legion, for doing this every year.
Mayor Johnson, City Council members, it is an honor to be here tonight to present the American Legion Maynard Price Post 52 Law and Order Awards. Our American Legion Post is composed of wartime military veterans who honorably served this nation during World War I from December 7th, 1941 until the present, and are committed to mentoring youth, sponsoring wholesome programs in our community, advocating patriotism and honor. promoting strong national security, and continued devotion to our fellow service members and veterans. One of the awards that we occasionally present is the Medal of Valor, which is not restricted to public safety personnel, but may be awarded to any person who distinguishes themselves conspicuously by actions that involve a serious risk to personal welfare, safety wherein there is an act of heroism performed at the risk of serious injury. Eligibility for the Medal of Honor requires that the act of valor occur in the city of Pullman. This year, there is no Medal of Valor presentation. There is a special award to be presented tonight to two citizens. This award is the American Legion Citizenship Medal, awarded to a citizen who took actions that promoted human welfare and/or alleviated suffering and/or promoted positive social reform. Tristan M. Thomas and Simon L. Delfini, please come forward. I believe only one is here. Pullman Police Department stated, on October 9, 2022, an intoxicated female had assaulted her 11-year-old son and then put him and two other children into a vehicle. The suspect attempted to drive away while highly intoxicated with three children in the vehicle. Tristan Thomas, an employee of Mo, observed what was happening. He confronted the suspect and then stood in front of the vehicle, preventing the intoxicated suspect from driving away with three children in the car until police could intervene. When Pullman police arrived, they arrested the driver for DUI and assaulting one of the children. If not for Thomas, the children could have been placed in great danger. On December 14, 2022, Pullman police responded to an apartment in Pullman. Upon arrival, they learned that a 36-year-old Pullman resident had threatened to kill his roommates with a gun. Police evacuated the resident, but the suspect barricaded himself inside. Simon Delfini lived in a nearby apartment. He allowed Pullman police and Whitman County regional SWAT members into the apartment. The generosity he demonstrated allowed SWAT to occupy his apartment over the next 9 hours. They helped operations tremendously. His apartment provided a safer, warmer, and better location for members to address the public threat than the other alternatives available. On behalf of the American Legion Maynard Price Post 52, it is my honor to present to Tristan N. Thomas and Simon L. Delfini the American Legion Citizenship Medal. Now to the awards that we regularly present. The next award to be presented is the Firefighter of the Year Award, which is restricted to a member of local, county, or state fire departments. Our post requires that the firefighter's action must have occurred in or been involved on the behalf of this. Firefighter Godina graciously accepted the challenge and rapidly adapted to learning the needs of the department, acquiring detailed knowledge about fire apparatus, spending numerous hours working with fire truck vendors, as well as traveling back to the factory to perform various inspections. Due to his work ethic and thoroughness on the fire truck committee, Roy was also asked to perform the final inspection of the newly received 2022 ambulance by the city's fleet maintenance supervisor, Floyd Bowler. Even though he had not been part of the previous ambulance committee, Roy did an excellent job. Roy is considered an exceptional engineer by his peers and is an excellent instructor on teaching the operations of fire apparatus. He consistently provided 100% of effort in his duties, displays a great attitude, and takes pride in his work. Firefighter Roy Godina's dedication and professionalism exemplifies the mission of the Pullman Fire Department. Roy has definitely made a difference in securing quality fire apparatus now and in the future. His efforts are very much appreciated. On behalf of the American Legion and Maynard Price Post 52, it is my honor to present to Roy Godina the Firefighter of the Year Award. The next award to be presented is the Emergency Medical Technician of the Year Award. This award is restricted to certified firefighters who reside and are assigned within the state of Washington, and the recognition must have been for actions within the city of Pullman. Firefighter, paramedic, Christian Shad, please come forward. Pullman Fire Chief Mike Hess stated, Christian Shad is one of the 18 ship paramedics in the department. He continuously works to improve his EMS skills throughout training inside and outside of the department. In addition to his normal duties, Christian is also a member of the instructor cadre for the reserve recruit class, instructing for both the firefighting and the EMT class. He spends numerous hours each year off duty instructing new recruits and mentoring the next generation of firefighters and EMTs. The recruits are constantly giving praise for Christian's commitment and dedication to excellence, instruction, breaking down the material in a format they can understand and remember, as well as for his real-life training examples. Christian is considered an exceptional firefighter, paramedic by his peers. He consistently has a great attitude, and his customer service in the field is second to none. Firefighter, paramedic Christian Chad's dedication and professionalism illustrates the mission of the Pullman Fire Department. He has definitely made a difference in training current firefighters, EMTs, as well as one for the future. His efforts are very much appreciated. On behalf of the American Legion and Maynard Price Post 52, it is my honor to present to Christian Chad the Emergency Medical Technician of the Year Award. We're going to change here.
Okay, I'm Jerry Coker, a.k.a. Ted Weatherly. Tonight, Outstanding Officer of the Year. This award is restricted to member of the local, county, or state law enforcement agencies. Our post requires that the officer's actions must have occurred or been involved in on behalf of the city of Pullman. The Pullman Police criteria for this award is, and I quote, an officer's work during the past year that best exemplifies excellence in the law enforcement contributions to the police department and the community. Tonight, that award is presented to Pullman Police Officer Nathan Pradta. All right. Officer President Pratterday. Pratterday. Okay. Pratterday like Saturday. All right. Has shown exemplary work and leadership for the Pullman Police Department and the city of Pullman in 2022. During that year, he investigated 750 calls for service as a patrol officer. His work ethic is unparalleled. He worked more than 300 hours more than the next closest officer in class in 2022, filling operational staffing needs whenever asked. Officer Pratterday volunteered for numerous projects and public events representing the best of the Pullman Police Department. He also has worked as a crisis negotiator for the Whitman County Regional SWAT Team, responding to critical emergencies to help citizens in crisis. He has been an integral part of the Pullman Police Department peer support team, helping officers not only in Pullman, but elsewhere on the Palouse. Good for you. As part of the Pullman Police Department Wellness Committee, he worked hard to organize critical care for police officers through the Sigma Tactical Wellness Program. Sigma focuses on identifying high-risk individuals, successfully managing known cardiac illness, and preventing early onset heart disease in younger officer populations. Officer Pradate has also worked as a field training officer, helping mold the next generation of Pullman police officers. Commander, it is his pleasure to present to you, in his honor, a certificate acknowledging the 2022 Outstanding Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. In addition, his name will be inscribed on a plaque that is displayed at the Pullman Police Department. The next award is unusual, but based on information from the Pullman Police Department, the Post believes that an honorable mention for Outstanding Law Enforcement Officer of the Year is in order. Also, Ryan McNanny, please come forward. Ryan McNanny is not here today. Okay, Officer Ryan McNanny has shown exemplary work for the Pullman Police Department in 2022. During the year, Officer McNanny worked as a patrol officer, SWAT team member, CART team member, TASER instructor, and lead drone pilot. Officer McNanny's use and skill of the less than lethal munitions during a SWAT standoff under a particular case in Pullman resulted in a successful mission with a dangerous suspect taken into custody with no serious injuries. Officer McNanny's consistent positive can-do attitude set leadership for all. The commander has a certificate that will be presented to the Pullman Police Department, so Officer McNanny will receive it. The next award is 911 Operator of the Year. Criteria for this award is that the recipient be a full-time paid 911 operator selected from a public or private agency that is responsible for receiving 911 calls and dispatching fire, medical, and law enforcement services. The selected nominee may either be a call receiver or a dispatcher. Carolina Calvin and Ashlyn Tesdall, would you both please come forward? Okay, which one's Carolina?
Carolina.
Okay, Carolina?
Yes.
Carolina, okay. Kendall Will submitted a nomination for Carolina Calvin for 911 Dispatcher of the Year to Wendy Barrett, Whitcomb Executive Director. Wendy concurred and submitted the nomination as stated below. I would like to nominate Carolina Calvin for 911 Dispatcher of the Year. I've seen a lot of personal growth from her in the past year. She sets the bar high, being focused and constantly bettering herself as a dispatcher. She talks positively about training new staff and generally wants them to be successful. Carolina does a good job at work and often picks up overtime hours when she can. She stands out, setting a positive example for her fellow coworkers. She has fully embraced her career and made Whitcomb a happier place to work. Carolina was a call taker and dispatcher for one of the biggest cases in Whitcomb that it has had in a long time, and that are the Moscow homicides. Carolina demonstrated strong professionalism, remaining calm and collected. She made Whitcomb proud, following protocol and handling the call exactly the way she was trained to do. Pullman Police Department supports the nomination of Carolina Calvin when asked the American Legion to recognize two members of Whitcomb by stating, Whitcomb provides dispatch services for numerous agencies for law enforcement and EMS services. Sometimes this requires being able to monitor multiple radio frequencies and multiple officers, deputies, and EMS and fire services simultaneously. So Carolina was one of them, And Ashley, you were the other nominated. And in a moment, we'll talk about that. Carolina and Ashlyn have handled some of the most difficult calls while talking with law enforcement and meeting their needs, and while potentially paging fire and EMS when necessary. Both have always been calm and handled the radio and 911 calls with patience. Both are always willing to help someone when they need it and are amazing to work with. Officers in particular have appreciated Carolina's high performance standards and accuracy when dispatching. So it is our honor to present to Carolina Calvin a certificate acknowledging her as the 2022 911 Operator of the Year. And to present to Ashlyn Tesdall a certificate acknowledging honorable mention for the 2022 911 Operator of the Year. Congratulations. The next awards being presented tonight are the Humanitarian and Life-Saving Awards, which are not restricted to public safety personnel, but may be given to any member of the community who either has performed an act that results in the saving of a life, or who has performed an act that is considered humanitarian in nature. The first award presented tonight is to Pullman Police Sergeant Reuben Harris, Officer Wade Weingartner, and Officer Heidi Lamley. Would you three come up forward, please? I see Wade's unable to make it tonight. Okay. On December the 14th, 2022, Sergeant Reuben Harris, Officer Weingartner, and Officer Heidi Lamley responded to a reported weapon offense. Upon arrival, they learned that a 36-year-old Pullman resident had threatened to kill his roommates with a gun. One roommate escaped the apartment while another roommate locked himself in his room. The three Pullman police officers went to the apartment and confronted the suspect, who retreated and barricaded himself in the next to the remaining roommate's room. The three officers made an exigent entry into the apartment, fearing for the roommate. They covered the suspect door, and while evacuating the remaining roommate from inside the apartment. Later, the suspect shot multiple rounds in the apartment and outside of it. The officer's direct action to evacuate the roommate likely saved his life. On behalf of American Legion Maynard Price Post 52, it is our honor to present each of you with a certificate acknowledging the American Legion Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award. But there is a postscript. I am proud to announce that these individuals will be awarded the Department of Washington State American Legion Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award to be awarded at the Washington Department Conference scheduled this summer. So congratulations on that. Okay. The next Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award is presented to Sergeant Reuben Harris, Officer Tiana McNanny, and Officer Joe Gill. Guile? Okay. On August 20th, 2022, Sergeant Reuben Harris, Officer Tiana McNanny, and Officer Joe Guile responded to a reported overdose. Officers located an unconscious male who was not breathing. Officers administered Narcan and CPR. The patient started breathing, was transported to Pullman Regional Hospital. He later recovered. On behalf of the American Legion Post, it is our honor to present to each of you a certificate acknowledging the American Life-Saving and Humanitarian Award. The next Humanitarian Life Award will be presented to Officer Kayla Nuxel and Officer Holden Humphrey. Would you come forward? On September 13th, 2022, Officer Kayla Nuxel and Officer Holden Humphrey responded to a reported drug overdose. Officers located a 40-year-old female who was unconscious and not breathing. Officers administered several doses of Narcan and CPR. The patient regained consciousness and was transported to Pullman Regional Hospital by medics. On behalf of American Legion Post Maynard Prize 52, it is my honor to present to each of you a certificate from the American Legion on the Humanitarian and Life-Saving Awards. All right, here we go again. The next award is a Humanitarian Life-Saving Award presented to Officer Nathan Patterday. Right? There we go. And Officer Jeff Gordon. Would both of you please come forward? There you go. On June 18, 2022, Officer Nathan Patterday and Officer Jeff Gordon responded to a report of an unconscious person at an apartment in Pullman. They located an unconscious 26-year-old male who was not responsive. They suspected fentanyl use. They administered Narcan and began CPR. The patient was revived and later transported to Pullman Regional Hospital. On behalf of American Legion Maynard Prize Post 52, it is our honor to present both of you a certificate acknowledging the Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award. Okay. The next Humanitarian Life-Saving Award is presented to Officer Tiana McNanny, Officer Darren Romero, and Officer Brianna Banks. Would you please come forward? On July 3rd, 2022, Officer Tiana McNanny, Officer Darren Romero, and Officer Brianna Banks responded to a reported seizure call. When officers arrived, they located an unconscious 38-year-old male who was not breathing. They recognized the symptoms of drug overdose. They administered Narcan and CPR. The patient eventually regained consciousness and recovered. On behalf of American Legion Maynard Prize Post 52, it is our honor to present each of you a certificate acknowledging the American Legion Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award.
So we hold on to the Brianna Banks.
Yeah, I will give that to the commander in a few minutes. This is 6? Okay. The next Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award is presented to Officer Nathan Patterday. I'm going to get that down. And Officer Love St. Andre. Okay. On New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2021, and they didn't make it to our awards last year, so we're going to give it to them this year. Nathan Patterday and Officer Love St. Andre responded to a choking call at a Pullman restaurant. When they arrived, the patient was unconscious and, again, not breathing. Officers prepared an AED while administering CPR. The Pullman Fire Department's medics arrived and took over life-saving measures. They were able to remove a piece of steak from the throat. The patient survived. On behalf of American Legion Maynard Prize Post 52, it is our honor to present both of you a certificate acknowledging the American Legion Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award. Number 7? Okay. The next Humanitarian Life-Saving Award is presented to Officer Brock Westerman and Officer Jeff Gordon. Would you please come forward? On May 14th, 2022, Officers Brock Westerman and Officer Jeff Gordon responded to a reported overdose. When they arrived, they located an unconscious 24-year-old male who was not breathing. They located evidence to believe the patient was suffering from a fentanyl drug overdose. Officers administered Narcan and CPR. The patient recovered and regained consciousness. He was transported to Pullman Regional Hospital. On behalf of the American Legion Maynard Prize Post 52, it is our honor to present both of you a certificate acknowledging the American Legion Humanitarian and Life-Saving Award.
Most of these humanitarian life-saving awards dealt with drug overdoses, and fentanyl, unfortunately, has made a presence in our local communities. And as I was talking with the chief earlier, there's another new drug mixture with fentanyl and a horse tranquilizer that's starting to move across the nation. So we are very concerned about this. We encourage any citizen or public safety official to contact our American Legion Post at Post Office Box 24 in Pullman, 99163, any American Legion member or the Pullman Police or Fire Department with nominations this year, 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matter. Thank you, Jerry and Ted, and we appreciate the American Legion with these awards, and congratulations to our officers, the fire department, the police department. Thank you very much for all the life-saving and all the safety that you've given this community, and we appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for your service. And thank you very much for our Whitcomb operators. Listen to you all the time, and you do a very professional job, I can tell you that. So. With that, the next item on the agenda tonight is discussion of goals as relates to vacant buildings. And with that, we have R.J. Lott, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. All right, I think we're on track now. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is a discussion item on one of the 2022-2023 City Council goals. Back on September 13th, staff presented initial findings and asked for further direction on this item. Everett and Auburn were identified by the City Council as cities to further explore with this goal. So existing since 2007, the City of Pullman does have a nuisance control as it relates to vacant buildings. Title V is the Health and Sanitation section of the Pullman City Code. Section 5.01.050, number 22, reads, all vacant, unused, or unoccupied buildings and structures within the city which are allowed to become or remain open to entrance by unauthorized persons or the general public because of broken glass, missing or open windows, or other openings so that the same may be used by vagrants or other persons detrimental to the health and welfare of the inhabitants of the city. So that's existing since 2007. Dating back to the September 13th meeting with the City Council, the cities of Everett and Auburn were mentioned a couple of times, so they're included in this presentation. Everett Municipal Code 16.16 under buildings and construction. So each of these cities will have the code section and where they sit in each city's code, just by reference. This relates to commercial spaces in the urban mix zone. Buildings are set to register within 10 days. There are maintenance requirements. They must post vacant commercial space as registered with the City of Everett. and may not meet all applicable codes and regulations, which may include codes and regulations required to occupy the same space for permitted use in the urban mixed zone. And then it states the vacant commercial space was registered. On the bottom, it shows the annual fee. So 1 year is $250, second year, $500, and so on, as you can see. The next city, which was discussed by City Council back in September, was the city of Auburn. Their code lies under building construction also. It is enforced citywide. If vacant more than 30 days, the building owner must register with the city. The property must be secured. Water is disconnected. Property maintenance standards exist, and a notice posted in a visible location on the property. Additional cities that we have found, that staff found, with similar codes include the city of Liberty Lake near Spokane. Their code lies within the health and sanitation. It is established citywide, creates a vacant or abandoned property registration program in order to protect the community from being blighted. Properties within 30 days of being abandoned receive notice from the city. Once again, property maintenance, an annual abandoned property registration fee exists as well. And then there's some links if folks want to dive a little deeper. The next city, College Place near Walla Walla, their code lies within the health and safety section. It also is citywide, must register within 10 days, posting inside the building, which is not visible from the outside. I found that interesting. Annual registration fee due the first of the year, and there's also a maintenance requirement. Bremerton also popped up. Theirs is under health and sanitation, also citywide. Incidentally, there's no annual fee, but there are monthly inspections, maintenance requirements, and properties must be secured from unauthorized access. So other notable cities that we did find nationwide, Wilmington, Delaware, Evanston, Illinois, San Antonio, Texas, Cleveland Heights, Ohio, Duluth, Minnesota, Fresno, and Norfolk, Virginia. So the conclusion on the Washington cities, staff submitted, actually Thad did, staff submitted a public records request with the city of Everett. He asked for annual reports, vacant commercial space registrations, and code enforcement actions. Everett responded with, quote, no responsive records. A similar request was done with the city of Auburn for vacant building ordinance. They responded their vacant building ordinance only applies to single-family residential properties, presumably to deter squatters. College Place, their ordinance is relatively new and has had no enforcement actions. I spoke with Liberty Lake, only 2 properties on their registry over the last 6 years, and both of those were residential. Additional research found that staff was not able to locate any litigation actions due to related vacant buildings, either residential or commercial, within the state of Washington. So with that, staff seeks additional city council direction on this goal moving forward. Any questions I can answer?
Nathan, we'll go to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. RJ, 2 things. First, with the nuisance code, mention of vagrants or other persons detrimental to the health and welfare of the inhabitants of that city. Is there any way we can just plain say entrance that persons can get access to the building? Personally, vagrants is pretty negative connotation, pretty old school, and I think that needs to be updated. That's just a side measure to what we're talking about, but I just wanted to mention that. The other question is, I know there's been some outreach to the building owners. Can you explain how much outreach? I know Jennifer was doing some, and it was brought up at one of town halls that there wasn't any outreach to one building owner. And so I've been trying to initiate that, but I think it comes, has more weight coming from the city. So can you speak a little bit to our outreach to those owners?
Yeah, it's my understanding that staff has attempted to reach some of these building owners, and in large part, they're unresponsive to communications with the city. So trying to encourage them to occupy or make use or to make more aesthetically pleasing their structures has been a challenge, quite honestly.
Okay, just one more question. With the plans for the downtown, have we sent information to those owners explaining how, I guess the only way to say it is how exciting the future of Pullman downtown is and how we'd love to have them invest? One thing is, in my opinion, is saying, "We need you to respond," versus, "Can you help us invest to make the downtown better?" So can you speak to that?
Personally, I don't know if that message has been directly sent to them,
Okay.
but it certainly can be.
Okay, thank you.
We had Jen Ackman and myself, I think you were on the line, we talked with somebody out of Utah, if I recall, that owns 2 buildings downtown. And we did mention what we were planning to do downtown, so that message has been conveyed. And one of the building owners you talk about, I did have direct communication with him, but it's been since 2016, and I've tried to make contact and have not had any luck. So, but I at least talked twice to him. So, other questions or comments? Megan, we'll give Megan, and then we'll go to Ann.
So this is more a comment, and it's along the lines of what Nathan was talking about and letting people know about building owners specifically downtown about the plans and investment of millions of dollars into our downtown. I just find it really disappointing that those folks are unresponsive when we are looking at making that kind of investment. We may not be able to force them to use their property, say, but would really appreciate it if they would look at least maintaining it and upgrading it at a time when, again, we're making such an investment, and we just don't want the property to fall into category of blight. And again, doing the right thing is something that we're asking them to do.
Ann?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with both Nathan and Megan. I guess my comment is, so what I'm hearing is there isn't a clear cut or way to make these building owners accountable, or there's not been any evidence of success in that in our comparable cities that we looked at. So, but is there a way to make them, as Councilmember Guido said, accountable for their property? You know, and in the city, well, let me just say this. So, is there a way to do that by 2 things: having them have registration for vacant commercial properties in the central business district, and assessing fines as Everett has up in their code? I mean, is there anything, or is there something we can do to say, we see you, we know that you have this issue, and we are, because of our extensive renovation and our renewal of downtown, we are trying to sort of force the issue to ask you to bring your building up to at least an acceptable standard that's comparable to the other building owners and business owners who do take the time and do invest in the buildings to make our downtown appealing. So that's my question/comment.
Do you have any response on that, or keep moving on?
But if that's the direction the council wants to go, we
Yeah.
can certainly put an ordinance together relating to that. However, our staff research has not shown that that there is a comparable situation where we could fine, per se, for a vacant building.
Eileen?
Back in October of 2019, council looked at this extensively and asked for a report from our then city attorney, Laura Macklin. And on the following meeting on November 19, 2019, I mean, this is going back years, that we got a great report from Laura about many communities. I pulled all their stuff and looked at their ordinances. Laura explained to us in some detail that the sliding scale that, Everett uses is probably not a good idea because it's not directly tied to administrative cost. But what we can do, should we choose to put together a registration, like I said, I'm going a lot on what Laura provided for us years ago, is we can establish for this little business district a vacant property registration, and we can have charge an administrative fee. And that can be determined by Mike's and his good finance team, establish who and what on the city and the inspectors and Jeremy's time or whoever it might be, and staff time, and come up with an annual registration fee. And it could also be further determined other inspections would need to be made. The many that I've looked at go a lot, give the city inspectors and the nuisance code and the maintenance code a lot more tools in their toolbox. They reference not just the fact that unauthorized persons occupying the property, but it talks a lot about some of the aesthetic concerns that residents have talked to us about a lot. Like I say, this goes back, in my experience, back to 2019, and I reviewed the video, and this was discussed at great length at council. And even on November 19, staff was directed to provide a draft ordinance. Somehow that didn't happen. So we've sort of been over some of this ground, and we've looked at what didn't work, and we looked at what could work very, very carefully, and there's been, like I say, a tremendous amount of work put into this. The other things that I noticed when I was looking on the city's website under the available properties that's on our economic development page, that page was very out of date, and I know that Jennifer's just been, swamped with things, but if we had a vacant property registration, perhaps it would be easier to update that site using some of this data that we've gathered. And again, going back to the maintenance and nuisance part of the code, we could put a lot more tools in that toolbox that addresses peeling paint, that addresses, I ran across several that talked about boarded up buildings, that the boarded up sections of the building, obviously for appropriate security, but they would be painted to match the rest of the building, and that buildings would be maintained. And I think I've got 3 examples of where buildings would be maintained in such a way they did not look vacant. That might be going a little, it's being done. And I've got at least 8 or 9 examples here of communities in Washington. So I think there's a lot of things that we can cherry pick from some of the examples from all over our state, and put together something that our residents have been asking for and asking for and asking for, going way back beyond 2019. So a lot of that groundwork has been laid, and I encourage staff to review those videos from those 2 meetings where we did go over a lot of these, and see if we can come up with something that is both palatable to our residents and both kind of gets the job done. And it is so important for our downtown revitalization right now. We are spending millions of tax dollars, and it's an appropriate time to do this. And yes, we're going to have some pushback from various quarters, but it's not like this isn't being done in other communities, because it is. I thought it was curious that Auburn said it was only being used for residential, and that's not how their code reads. Most of these are focused on commercial properties, and it's not just life safety issues. It's for the betterment of the community and for the maintenance of look and the feel of the community, with the ultimate goal of attracting and keeping an economic viable base. So I think we've got a lot of tools in our toolbox. Let's do this. If we need to make alterations in the maintenance code and in the building codes, I think that that's appropriate also, in the nuisance code as well. Another thing that popped out at the November 19, 2019 meeting was that the code enforcement officer, Ohe, was reviewing our nuisance code at that time. A report came to council. Maybe it wasn't supposed to, but that apparently didn't happen somehow. I realize COVID screwed a lot of this stuff up. So all the things, there was also an inventory of vacant buildings downtown that was supposed to have been part of this packet. Somehow it got lost as well. So there's a lot to work with here, and let's work it. We've got some time here with the adjustment in the calendar for the downtown project. Let's respond to our residents in a way that they've been asking and put something together.
Becky and then Pat.
I just want to start by saying, RJ, thank you so much for this research, other city staff, and of course, Thad as well. I know this has taken some time in taking you away from other projects. I am taken by the level of your research, and that there isn't something already happening within the state of Washington, and I hear the caution in that. I think about carrots and sticks and how we move forward, making our downtown, which, as we've mentioned, we spent millions of dollars, and we will continue, we'll do that for our downtown, and how we attract businesses downtown. I am hesitant in general for an ordinance just because we're trying to attract businesses and not scare them away. So I have just kind of a word of caution in my brain about this. And as Councilmember McCall points out, there's probably some low-hanging fruit maybe we could do, list these vacant properties if that's all that takes is update the website. But I think there is some work we can do in this next year in more carrots, more building relationships, more working with people. So I appreciate this background. I wonder how much more, because it's not like this is free, right? This research isn't free. It's not that this doesn't cost your time or other staff or whatever. This is costing us as we go forward, and what we can do that actually gains some traction. I know we are all super frustrated about this. I've been in Pullman so long, some of these places that have been closed down for over decades, I've eaten in. Like I was there when they were open, and I've always wondered, what can we do? How can we, do something about this, because we are better than boarded up buildings type things. So I think this next year would be an interesting year in building relationships. I appreciate the work that you've done and wonder how much more time and energy we put into things that are not working. Thank you.
Okay, Pat?
Thank you, RJ. And I agree with all of the comments that have been made by my colleagues. One question that does come up, and so maybe for the benefit of our people that are listening or watching tonight, could you just clarify for everyone what the difference is between what we're looking at here as nuisance and what would be termed condemnation?
So a nuisance would need to be tied to some type of health or safety issue. Is there broken glass? Has there been a history of trespassing? Is there danger to the general public? So that would be really a basic definition of a nuisance. You could apply that to any number of things, such as vacant automobiles or weeds or trees that have been downed, so it's not just to vacant buildings. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question was?
If you could clarify the difference with this and when something truly qualifies for condemnation.
Oh, so if there is a overwhelming safety issue, if a building was imminent to be a hazard of falling down on a passerby or to a child that may be playing in the area, that's something that would fall into that category.
Okay, thank you. And the last part of my comment does go back to Councilmember McCall's comments as well, and that is that given the timing of November 2019 and everything that has transpired since then, including almost a complete changeover of department heads of the areas that we're talking about, I think we now have an opportunity to kind of take what we have already gathered and move forward with what maybe the best practices and best suggestions might be. Because I think in light of the upcoming renewal of downtown, it behooves us to address these things, and I think our public and our citizens would appreciate that as well. So, thank you.
Francis?
Thank you. I appreciate the research done as you've looked at how cities have applied the ordinances that they have. Councilmember McCall talked about a number of other ordinances that weren't referenced, and I'm interested as it relates to those ordinances, I'm assuming, but I don't want to just assume, that as a part of your research, you looked at those ordinances, and then what you brought to us are the ones that are actually being applied versus those that are just on the books. Is that an accurate representation?
Yes.
Or some of the ordinances that she referenced haven't been looked into?
So primarily the research was with Auburn and Everett as suggested back in September. And then we've looked at some others to see if there was some ways that we could apply that here in Pullman. So I don't know exactly which lists or which cities Councilmember McCall has researched, but I'm sure that I will get this shortly after this evening.
Okay. And what would be helpful is a lot of cities have rules on the books, but they don't enforce them, versus those that are enforced. And really, we're looking for what are ones that are, you know, if there's a rule on the books, but they're not enforced, to be helpful to know why they have not enforced it. And the reports that you've provided are the ones that, how they're enforcing it. If you have any background story on why they're only enforcing them certain ways and not other ways, that'd be helpful for us. Like the example, the ordinance is written for all buildings, but it's only been enforced for residential. If there's a backstory on why that's the case, that'd be helpful for us as we're making our decision going forward. Because I feel that there's a number of ordinances out there, but is it the ordinance got established and then realized that there were flaws in the ordinance and so they just haven't gone forward? Is it because they realized that the carrot was more important than a stick, and so so the city has chosen to focus on the carrot side as opposed to the enforcement side? Those are pieces that are helpful for me in evaluating the different options for the best option going forward.
I've heard presentations from both Wenatchee and Walla Walla in terms of what they've done and how they got their merchants and owners to get going and clean things up and work together.
But Wenatchee has a heck of an ordinance.
Yeah.
I got it right here.
So, but it would be also helpful to take a look at those as well. Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing, RJ. With everything that's already been said, but back just real quick on the carrot thing. As we're moving forward communications about the downtown revitalization, I think it would be a good opportunity for us to reach out again to those vacant building owners and share the enthusiasm. If we're telling the people that are already in the buildings, let's also extend that out to people that aren't, or the owners that aren't. And you know what? If it doesn't work, okay, but we're going the extra mile, and we're showing, you know, we're investing in the downtown. We want them to invest. So anyways, yeah, I feel that would be important.
I think you've heard from every council member.
Hey, Mayor, can
Yes.
to Councilmember Benjamin's question, I spoke with the code enforcement person at Auburn who was in charge of enforcing this, and he said they've always interpreted it as only residential buildings. And that was the intent of the ordinance, was residential, because it came about during the first crash where there was a lot of
Empty homes.
And at the city of Everett, I spoke to the city attorney who wrote the ordinance, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said there was a big push to get it. We got it in place, and then he never did another thing with it. So I don't know the reason why they never did anything with it, but I asked for all documents. They never took any steps to enforce it.
Mike, you had a comment?
Yeah, just two quick ones. I believe the 2019 document also mentioned Yakima as one of those, and I think we've discovered that that has since been repealed. So just kind of an FYI on that. And as far as the 2019, I'm going to take responsibility for the lack of follow-up on this. Poor RJ didn't get here until August of 2020, so it was not even on his radar. I was finance director at that time. I believe I was at that meeting, and until you sent the note late last week, Eileen, it was not on my radar either. So this is new information that we're assimilating right now, again, kind of for the first time, RJ and I.
Eileen?
Well, I hope that Yakima gets itself together. I looked at their code extensively, and they went with the International Building Code, and their code now has pages and pages of this clause does not apply, this clause does not apply, this clause does not apply. They look like they're in a process of sort of rehashing that whole thing. So yeah, this is something, like I say, the Wenatchee ordinance, like the Mayor just referenced, it says to establish a process to address the deterioration and decline in value of City of Washington or Wenatchee neighborhoods caused by properties, vacant properties located within the City of Wenatchee, and to identify, regulate, limit, and reduce the number of these properties located herein. So the Wenatchee one, yep, they've got a thing going on.
And they already got a buy-in, too.
They've had-
They got a significant amount of buy-in from
Yep.
the merchants downtown. So now, I think pretty clear in terms of the direction?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you, RJ, for your presentation. We appreciate it. Okay. Next on the agenda is public comment. This is time for anyone who would like to make a comment on any final action the council is taking tonight. And again, on final action that we're taking. Anyone who would make a comment on that? Seeing none, close the public hearing on final action. Next comes consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature. Council's had a chance to study these ahead of time. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
So, second.
Moving side, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, Thad O'Sullivan.
Thank you. The first item is a motion to dispense with the March 14, 2023. I assume that should be a motion to dispense with the reading of the March 14, 2023 meeting minutes and approve them as submitted. Number two, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 109739 through 109756, electronic transfers 101, 102, 975, and 981 through 986, payroll direct deposits numbered 83599 through 83946, totaling $1,360,075.71. Third item is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 109757 through 109821, totaling $304,894.38. Number four, a motion to approve disbursement for payroll checks numbered 74926 and replace check number 83795 with check number 83947, totaling $540.77. Fifth item, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 109822 through 109899, totaling $279,919.72. Finally, a motion to award bid number 2023-004, Water and Sewer General Materials, and authorize all actions necessary to execute contracts for such items.
Is there anyone the council would like on for discussion? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of items 1 through 6. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we now move to the regular agenda. First item is an ordinance dealing with water conservation. Kristen Reisenhauer from our maintenance and operations, who's been the voice of water conservation on the radio station. And you do a nice job on that too, Kristen. I want you to know that.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I'm here tonight with a great team that has been working over the past months to consider the future of water conservation in Pullman. City Engineer Kara Haley, as well as Tyler Palmer and Kelly Cooper with the City of Moscow, are here with me tonight. The action before you this evening is to create Chapter 10B, Water Conservation, to be added to Pullman City Code. This action item is presented in an effort to meet the council goal identified during May of '22 to develop and implement a seasonal residential irrigation management program. This ordinance proposes a regulated outdoor irrigation season and schedule. little technical or operator difficulty, one of the two. I think we're good. Additional steps were taken to ensure responsible water use by identifying, am I getting what I need up there? It didn't, but I think it was a me issue, not a issue. Stand by. Thank you. Thank you. Additional steps were taken to ensure responsible water use by identifying and prohibiting irrigation of impervious surfaces and water waste. The graph on this slide demonstrates Pullman's average monthly water use over the course of a year. Each year, we use approximately 934 million gallons of water. Baseline use represents water necessary to meet daily household demands and accounts for approximately 53.3 million gallons per month. As you can now see in red, we far exceed our baseline requirements during the summer irrigation months, with 31.5% of Pullman's annual water usage occurring during the summer months for outdoor use. The opportunity available to reduce our overall water use throughout this targeted effort is clear. With the goal of educated, responsible water use in mind, we envision that this code would be another tool to be added to those we already have in place, such as our tiered water rate structure, the seasonal surcharge that occurs annually during the summer months, and the tool that AMI implementation will provide in the future to both water customers and ourselves as well. Ooh, I sort of knew that was going to happen. I apologize, guys. You'll give me grace on my first time out, right? So we were at AMI implementation providing a tool to both the customers and ourselves. Our intent is to educate and empower water users to responsibly and effectively irrigate the landscaped areas at their homes and businesses within the parameters identified in this proposed chapter. As we work on a common mission with the Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee to stabilize our aquifer and promote responsible water use, we recognize that creating guidelines for landscape irrigation is a significant step in the right direction. The irrigation management plan being proposed to you tonight includes many components, the first of which is an identified annual outdoor irrigation season. The season is defined as beginning on June 1st and concluding on September 30th unless declared otherwise. During the outdoor irrigation season, an irrigation schedule is proposed, which would limit customers to irrigate a maximum of 3 days in any given week. Customers with even number addresses are designated to water their landscaped areas on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Customers with odd number addresses on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Additionally, a watering window has been identified in the proposed code. Customers are to perform outdoor irrigation only between 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. The window opens on the designated watering day and ends the following day at 10 a.m. For example, if you live at 280 Southeast Crestview, on Tuesday, July 11th, you would be guided to begin watering no earlier than 8 p.m. and ensure that all irrigation is concluded no later than 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Consideration was given to impact on customers who may be manually moving sprinklers throughout their yard. With plenty of daylight before 10 a.m. and after 8 p.m. during the summer months, the opportunity to succeed in following the code as presented is achievable. Engineering intern staff provided us with research that helped drive the decisions made in forming the proposed code. It is common misperception that in order to maintain the green lawn all of your neighbors envy, that you need to apply a lot of water. The research that was included in your council packet provides that smart watering far exceeds the importance of applying a lot of water to landscaped areas. In addition, you'll find the code proposed to you tonight is in alignment with many municipalities who already have an established irrigation management program. Evapotranspiration is the water lost through plant transpiration and soil and plant evaporation. In conjunction with rainfall and weather patterns and many other variables, it directly impacts irrigation needs and efficiencies. In-depth research was performed by our engineering interns and was provided to you as part of the council packet. The simplified version of the extensive research on evapotranspiration can be seen on this slide. Each of the 4 colored data sets represents a different day that falls within the outdoor irrigation season. The data graphed is specific to Pullman in 2022 and provides a complete view with the beginning, middle, and end of the typical irrigation months in Pullman represented. As you can see, minimal to no evapotranspiration occurs during the overnight hours after 8 p.m. and before 6 a.m. Evapotranspiration is consistently highest between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. And additional factors such as risk of plant disease and available daylight hours were considered in conjunction with this evapotranspiration data to help define the recommended watering window of 8 p.m. to 10 a.m. As we work to develop a plan, an ongoing goal to make this restriction realistic and able to be followed by all, including ourselves as the city, was paramount. In order to ensure we were able to meet the requirements of parks and other city-maintained properties, conversations with our Parks and Facilities Director, Kurt Damon, took place. The concerns provided included areas without existing automated watering systems and locations where there are too many irrigation zones to complete watering the entirety of a park or space over the course of 3 days. In order to address these concerns while also meeting the expectations being established for others, it was determined that parks and other city-maintained properties intended to serve the public would follow the watering window of 8 p.m. to 10 a.m., would limit watering any area or zone to a maximum of 3 days per week, but that they would be allowed to water 6 days per week, Monday through Saturday. As these determinations were made, it was established that schools operating off the city's water system would also be provided this allowance. As we highlighted the allowance provided for parks and schools, I would like to bring to your attention Section 10B40, as there are specific exemptions that would allow for identified situations to be automatically exempt from proposed irrigation restrictions. There is also a process that allows for temporary exemptions to be applied for and granted as appropriate. There are also a few items to highlight in the world of always and never. This ordinance is written to provide that handheld irrigation is always acceptable. Those of us working to develop this ordinance spent a considerable amount of time visiting and revisiting definitions and intent. As it is applied in Chapter 10B, handheld irrigation or hand watering cannot occur unattended, which means that you may use a hose or bucket to hand water at any time of day during or outside of the proposed irrigation season. On the other end, irrigation of impervious surfaces and water waste are never allowed. These occurrences are easy to identify as you could see them happening through general observation. These issues could include sprinklers being set in such a way that water is landing on sidewalks or streets instead of the intended landscaped area. Water waste may originate from water fixtures or service lines that are broken. As mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we are pleased that the council goal and this step in promoting conservation in Pullman aligns with the Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee's ongoing focus to promote conservation at a regional level and supports our ongoing partnership with PBAC. Another community partnership with the City of Moscow has been at the forefront of developing the ordinance proposed to you. Here with us tonight is City of Moscow Deputy City Supervisor Tyler Palmer, and Environmental Services Coordinator for Sustainability Programs, Kelly Cooper. We appreciate them both taking the time to be with us here tonight to discuss water conservation in Moscow.
Your Honor, distinguished members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here again tonight and talk about something so important, which is water in our community. It's really the most fundamental thing that we can talk about, and to me, I think the most important charge of local government is providing local water or providing potable water to our residents. It's what makes us able to live here, and I think we all enjoy doing that. And so we're really excited to have been able to collaborate with your staff as they worked to develop this policy. The City of Moscow has had a outdoor irrigation season restriction in place since 2004. So as you'll see, in 1978, the city established as a code to make it unlawful to waste water. In 2004, the irrigation season was set. In 2007, the updates to the outdoor irrigation season, we added sections that prohibited the irrigation of impervious surfaces. And then in 2016, we actually adopted our water conservation plan, and that was when we added some things that Pullman already had in place, like toilet rebates and some of those items. And so it's been a great collaboration. We all pull from the same pond, and so water's the quintessential common pool resource, and we're all in the same pool, pulling from the same pond, and so we really appreciate the collaboration on this issue. I'd like to just show quickly on this, and this can be a little bit confusing, but I'll walk through it, and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. The impact that the irrigation season had, what you'll see here is Moscow's population in the first column, followed by our November through April consumption, which establishes that baseline consumption that Kristen talked about earlier. And then the third column there, the fourth column, excuse me, is the May through October consumption. So that shows our difference, which is our outdoor irrigation difference. And so you can see that in 2003, this is in millions of gallons, the difference was 208 million gallons in the city of Moscow. And when we passed that ordinance, it dropped to 174. And then we showed the more recent years just to show that despite population growth in the city of Moscow, we have still had lower outdoor irrigation uses than we had in 2003 since the passage of this ordinance. And it's really the only significant impact on the outdoor irrigation that we've had, other than the Wisescape guidebook that we created in collaboration with the city of Pullman. And then also we have a lawn rebate that we have for the change out of irrigated grass to a Wisescape. And so this is the biggest impact. So it has had an impact. It's been very beneficial. And so we're very encouraged by this, and we're really happy to continue on next steps as we work with the city and through PBAC toward what we hope to develop as a basin-wide conservation plan that will bring into alignment a lot of the components of conservation between our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. What's next? This feels like a natural question where great strides are being made toward an important goal. As we move forward, staff recommends that we roll out a robust educational component to support this proposed ordinance. Letting our residents, businesses, and all water customers know about the new guidelines and how to successfully follow them will require education. Once we've educated and provided informational resources, we will continue to provide tools that will empower citizens to successfully reduce outdoor water use following these guidelines and create new opportunities for engagement and success in water conservation. We look forward to this being a momentous step in our ongoing focus for collaborative conservation to ensure a more sustainable community for all. In conclusion, staff recommends you adopt this ordinance as presented to you tonight. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us. We're happy to take any questions or comments that you may have.
Questions? Okay, Megan, we'll go with you.
So I just want to say, yay, bravo, and it's about time. So I am very excited about this ordinance, and it makes perfect sense to me. And our love affair for the green grass and green yards is drawing to an end and needs to be drawing to an end. and we need to do this. So that's what I have to say.
I saw you had a hand up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this really comprehensive presentation. I just wanted to thank you and the department for all of the research and time that you've put into this to bring us the metrics, and also the city of Moscow and your help in providing data. I agree that it's something that'll make a lot of difference. I talked to a resident today, and they weren't too happy about it, but when I talked about the implication and on our aquifer, and that it's actually more effective to water smart instead of water daily, they agreed with that. So the education will be very key, but once people learn those key concepts, I think it'll be readily accepted. Thank you.
Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, I'll say this is also awesome, but it's going to be a huge behavioral shift for the community. So, of course, education, I'm not sure about students, how that's going to go across. I'm not sure if WSU is on board. I mean, we're talking about the city right now. So WSU is a big part.
So we wrote this code for those operating off of the city's water system. WSU maintains and has their own water system, so would not be impacted by the code as it's presented to you.
Okay. Yeah, I just know that we're all dipping from the same pond, so to say. So we all need to be on the same page. However, it's a good step. I will say, Tyler, you know, I gotta say the Wisescape Awards over in Moscow are really cool too. I remember attended a few of the Moscow City Council and seen those, and those are pretty awesome. The other thing I would like to ask about, and I know this may be outside of the scope of this conversation, gray water. So gray water is something I know Idaho has looser regulations on. When I was doing my master's degree, that was something that I was looking at for Washington. However, it's very strict in Washington, and I was wondering if we could also look into some gray water use. So rain barrels in particular, but I know there's some differences there. So anyways.
If I could just chime in to say two things that you asked about. One was in regard to WSU, and Kristen did answer that the code is really written for anyone off the city water system. But I just want to reiterate that WSU is an active member on PBAC, and they're engaged. Tyler mentioned a potential regional conservation plan, and the city and the university obviously have very different structures and ways that they can go about that. But I know that WSU is also, at least through our PBAC involvement, going to be putting towards strides to see what additional conservation they can do as well. And then the gray water, I don't have answers specifically about regulations and such in Washington. We can certainly come back with that and do some research. But I did want to comment that one of the exemptions that's automatically in the code would say that if you were using gray water, that would not fall under this. So if rain barrels were allowed, you could actually do that anytime you wanted. It'd be kind of like handheld irrigation. So.
Okay.
I just know, real quick, I just know with rain barrels, that's something that is very challenging in Washington because the water rights issue is very restrictive in comparison to Idaho. So maybe it's something we'll need to talk to legislators about. Yeah.
Okay, Becky is next.
I just want to say this is a great first step, and it seems completely reasonable. I read the whole thing and read the hour and then the hours that you propose, and I just think this is just so smart moving forward. I actually think it's the most important thing we can do, because downtown doesn't matter, anything in our city doesn't matter if we don't have water. And so this is a great step forward. It seems really reasonable, and I just want to echo other council members' comments on education, as Kristen did as well, that would be really important. Thank you so much for your work.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that we're going forward with this, and I really want to thank Kristen and my fellow PBAC members. The amount of research that's gone into this just about defies description. It's a huge project. We've got the numbers, you know. I get frustrated for, especially our engineers and our scientific staff, I get frustrated for them when I hear people say, well, we don't know what's going on. Yeah, we do know what's going on. And we know how to make things better and be sustainable, which has become, that's the key, is to become sustainable. And I think, now somebody have to check on this, I do believe that the state of Washington decriminalized rain barrel use about 6 or 8 years ago. So we'd have to check on that one. But thanks to all the PBAC members and the faithful Dave. Anytime we're talking water, Dave's right here nodding and smiling for us. So thanks, Dave, especially for being here. And our PBAC members, Paul, the faithful Paul, Avista has done great things in helping PBAC do its work, and throws a little money at us every now and again, and that's very much appreciated. So thank you all so much for this. This is absolutely fabulous.
Francis.
Thank you. And yes, rain barrels are legal in Washington now. I did have a question, just in comments going on. Is rain barrels gray water? I thought gray water was reused water from within a house system, not rain barrels.
Let's see.
It is for a trailer, I know.
May want to look up the definition of that.
So I'm just, since we're using terms, I want to make sure there's accurate.
And I actually think the way, I guess I have to look at the ordinance, but I tried to summarize some of the exemptions up here on just an extra slide in case those came up. The item where I did paraphrase it a little bit was where water used for outdoor irrigation is gray water, treated wastewater or effluent, reused water, or water not from the city water system, and then it kind of reiterated collected rainwater. So I think it separates it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't used
Good
the term
question,
in
though.
that way. So 2 questions that I have, in particular related to the ordinance, the day and the times. I'm glad that we're moving forward with this. One of my questions has to do with for cities that implement things like this, where we're telling people it's not an even day, but you actually can water both on the odd and the even days because your day starts on one day and ends on the other day. How much confusion does that create, or do we really need to stick to the odd days, even days, and so your odd day ends at midnight and starts at midnight?
Yes. It'll be education, I think, to convey what that watering window is. So just as that example, if you had an even odd address, you would be instructed to water starting on Tuesday night, Thursday night, or Saturday night. And then we actually went back and forth. It's funny that you say that because there's probably lots of ways to define it. But we looked at, there's all these municipalities that have this code. And I would say across the board, that's generally how they defined it. So we kind of stuck with what seemed to be working for other folks. So it's going to be an educational component. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it does. Okay. It's just because that's one I could see a question that would come up of if I can only water on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, so it's really Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, right. Thursday night and Friday morning.
It's a continuous, but
yes.
Then my second question has to do with the start time.
Sure.
A lot of municipalities have a 6 p.m. start time as opposed to 8 p.m. start time. Yep. And I'm wondering, as we look at socioeconomic, so not everybody can afford automatic in order to set the time, but because of their schedules, they may not be up, or I think about our seniors who they could be in bed before they could actually start watering. Are we not be considerate of those population groups that when we're setting this schedule, and so should it be a better as 6 o'clock as opposed to an 8 o'clock in order to think about those that have socioeconomic factors or some of our seniors who are in bed earlier? And so I'm interested in just your perspective related to that.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to pull up this slide here. It's kind of messy. This summarizes some of the interns' research, and it's really kind of up to what the council deems most appropriate and what you guys feel most comfortable with. Relatively across the board, you can see a 10 a.m. start date or start time is fairly consistent. Yeah. There are a few, end time.
The end time.
Yes, the end time. It is confusing when you think about it. There are some that actually do it earlier, like the 8 a.m. or the 9 a.m., so there are certainly some more conservative folks. Bozeman's up there, that's
Yeah.
consistent
So
with what we're
Bozeman would be
proposing.
the only one that's an 8 PM start. Everybody is an earlier start. And so that, I'm interested in
Yeah.
why we chose an 8 when everybody else is doing 6.
Sure.
And then I'm concerned about some of our population.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it
certainly.
help with the consistency of the message since Moscow is 6 PM?
We
that
can
we'd have both
certainly,
communities do the
again, it's
same?
a discussion. At this point, the code has one section where it defines the watering window, and we have set it at 8 p.m. So it was based off of, I'm going to show you one more chart here, just to be extra nerdy, if I can think through what it was. Actually, I'll go back to this chart that we showed. So this one, so you can kind of see the red window, so that would coincide fairly close with Moscow and kind of what's the average, you could say, of the municipalities, which was the 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. You can see our black lines, we do shift it to the one side a little bit. So you've got kind of the gap between the green and the red. I do want to say this was 2022 data. It wasn't quite as hot in like July and some of those months as we sometimes see. So some of those curves could look a little bit more, could look a little bit different in different years. One of the reasons we stuck with the later time, we were thinking, we do want to, what would be the right way to word this? We do want to set something that is reasonable. There was some discussion around potential disease if you watered too early, and keeping your lawn too wet for too long can kind of breed mold and other issues. So that was one consideration as to why we went later. There are municipalities, there was the Texas at 7 and the Bozeman at 8, so it's not completely unheard of. But certainly when you get into the spring and fall months, you have a little less time after the 8 p.m. period. So, I'd put it back on you guys and what you're most comfortable with, but if we go back to the chart, probably should find a better way. I think anywhere in here is fairly consistent with what other municipalities are doing.
Yeah, and I believe from a staff perspective, you've come up with what is the optimal. The optimal is if people, don't start until later in the evening with the watering. But at the same time, we need to consider our constituents and what they are able to do, and we don't want to set people up for failure. We want to set people up for success.
Yeah. I like how you said that, the optimum. The optimum would actually be, 6 a.m. So we did try to give a little bit there, but it's really up to whatever you guys think. I did want to add the memorandum. I noted Spokane was in the middle of figuring out what their restrictions were. I didn't put it up on this slide, but Spokane, I think last May, they did actually adopt a conservation code. It is also from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m., and it limits it to really every other day. So 3 to 4 days a week.
Eileen.
Yeah, this, thanks, Kara, for those details. This was discussed quite a bit at the most recent PBAC meeting, and the sense of the body was that PBAC would be comfortable in changing this to 6 p.m., so I suppose we could make a motion.
Can I make a comment, please?
Okay, Ann?
I think we're all assuming that people start watering at 8 p.m., but the folks who go to bed early will be up at 5 a.m. watering. So I think we can trust our residents to do what works best for them. And in the summer months, it's daylight well past 8 p.m., but you have early morning people and you have late night people, and they will adapt to their schedules. I feel like we can trust people to do what's best for them. Also, at 6 p.m., it can still be rather warm out still in the middle of the summer, which will negate the effects of trying to reduce evaporation specifically. So those are my thoughts on that. Not to say we can't change it, those are just my observations. Thank you.
This chart, real quick, does show temperature. It was from 2022 as well. So it does go from 3 p.m. It's more in the evening hours, but you can see it's still in the 70s, fairly hotter past 7 p.m. I'd say by the time you hit midnight, it's at its lows, right? So.
Okay, Nathan?
Yeah, I would agree with Francis on the 6 PM, I think setting it up for success is also important, so, yeah.
So we'll entertain a motion on this ordinance, and you can include that time if you would like to. Eileen?
Yeah, I move to adjust this time to 6 PM.
And with the rest of the ordinance?
The rest of the ordinance remains the same,
Right.
and we pass it as written, other than that one editorial change.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Thad, do you want to read the ordinance, please?
Yes. Excuse me. Ordinance number 23-7, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pullman, Whitman County, Washington, relating to Title 10, Public Services and Utilities, creating a new chapter, 10B, Water Conservation and other matters properly related thereto.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Chair Haley, our city engineer.
Really appreciate it.
Kristen and Tyler, thank you for your presentation. And I do think it's important to have a consistent message between both communities, especially when you hear some PSAs that are on the air. We just stick with it that way. All right, our next item on the agenda is a resolution amending the Care to Share Assistance Operating Guidelines. Megan Vining, our recreation supervisor, is on tap.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Thank you for having me today. Action that is requested in front of you today is to amend the Care to Share Assistance to low-income operating guidelines and procedures for programs and services provided by our department. A little bit of some background information is the Pullman Parks and Recreation Care to Share program was founded in 1991 and is designed to provide financial assistance to low-income families, which allows youth to participate in recreation programs at a discounted rate. At the end of 2022, when we were completing a review of our restricted fund balances, it was determined that the Care to Share Fund had a healthy balance in comparison to previous years. The fund is entirely established through private donations from citizens, businesses, WSU student special event projects, and Pullman Parks and Recreation fundraisers. Under the current adopted program fee schedule, participants can apply for one scholarship where 50% of the activity fee is to be supplemented from the Care to Share Fund with a maximum of $40. Or they can apply for two scholarships where 50% of the activity fee is to be supplemented from the Care to Share Fund with a maximum of $20. In an effort to encourage further participation in Parks and Recreation programs, and given the current balance of the Care to Share Fund, the Public Services Department is requesting to amend the fee schedule starting April 24th, 2023, and that is with our summer 2023 activity guide registration date, to allow participants to apply for one scholarship where 50% of the activity fee is to be supplemented from the Care to Share Fund with a maximum of $80, or apply for two scholarships where 50% of the activity fee is to be supplemented from the fund with a maximum of $40. We feel that the increase, it will help with the growing need of scholarships for families, as well as we are also seeing a need for a greater amount of scholarships distributed due to the rising activity fees that are happening, whether they're held with Parks and Recreation or contracted instructors out in our community as well. This increased amount would also help fund scholarships for youth, teen, and middle school students to be able to participate in our summer breakaway teen activities that are generally a higher fee for each individual trip. Those are trips such as Silverwood, Salmon River Experience, rafting, Triple Play, where they're an all-day experience with staff. Participants would also be able to take advantage of two scholarships and two trips for the summer at that higher amount. Typically, families in the past would only take advantage of one scholarship to use the $40 because of the cost of the trips. So now, if we raised it, they would be able to go on two trips and use those $80. This increase, starting with the summer activity guide for the summer, will also allow for youth ages 15 to 17 to register for our Pullman Aquatic and Fitness Center lifeguard course that we have coming up in May, as well as will be scheduled later in the summer as well as early next fall. And that provides individuals with that discounted rate to help youth receive a certification, gain employment skills, and then also help in becoming employees with our aquatic center where we are currently seeing a shortage of staff. An important item to note with this amendment that I'm asking for tonight is this will only affect the youth section of the Care to Share Fund, not a senior citizen section of that. That section of the Care to Share will remain at $40 per one activity or two for a maximum of $20. Their balance is separate and is significantly less than the youth balance. Staff will reassess the balance of the Care to Share Fund at the end of 2023 to see if we will need to amend the distributed amounts again based on usage this summer and into next fall. The Parks and Recreation Commission met on March 8th, 2023, and the commission members unanimously endorsed the amendment for the City Council's consideration and approval. So I, on behalf of the Recreation Department, am asking for your recommending for you to amend the Care to Share assistance to low-income youth operating guidelines and procedures for programs and services provided by the Public Services Department to take effect on April 24th, 2023. That is all that I have for you today. Do you have any questions
or comments? Pat.
Thank you, Megan, for putting this together and for carrying it forward. I think the Recreation Department is to be commended on the number of programs provided for our youth in the summer when sometimes they're struggling for constructive things to do.
Definitely.
And so I think this is well within the parameters that we can move forward with it. So thank you for doing this.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on this?
Move to adopt Resolution R-16-23.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thad?
Resolution number R-16-23, a resolution amending the 2018 Care to Share Assistance Operating Guidelines and Procedures as adopted by resolution number R-16-23.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3, Thad, this is yours. It's dealing with the opioid settlement, and item is yours to discuss.
Thank you, Mary Johnson. Members of the council, back in, this is part of the ongoing opioid distributor and pharmacy litigation that was started by the state of Washington and several other states across the country. In September, the council approved signing on to settlement with a number with McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen Corporation as part of their individual settlements in that litigation. What's before you tonight is similar, except the settling parties are Walmart, Teva, Allergan, CVS, and Walgreens. And so again, the purpose of what I'm presenting to the council approval tonight is in order for the city of Pullman to participate in receiving some of those settlement funds, which are then directed towards remediation of the opioid epidemic and prevention of further issues. So this is just kind of some boxes to check before the city can sign on to that.
Any questions? If not, do I hear a motion on this resolution?
Move to adopt Resolution R-17-23.
Second.
Moved and second. Thad?
I made a long one. Resolution R-17-23, a resolution authorizing the mayor or designee to execute the Washington State Allocation Agreement governing the allocation of funds paid by certain settling opioid manufacturers and pharmacies, parentheses, allocation agreement number 2, close parentheses, governing the distribution of funds obtained from Walmart, Teva, Allergan, CVS, and Walgreens, and related subdivision settlement participation forms, authorizing the mayor and finance director to take all actions necessary to effect the purpose of the settlement agreement and other matters related thereto.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Last item is a discussion item, City Council Town Hall meeting. We had a discussion of that the last time and pretty well gave some direction, but lead some more. And with that, Mike Urban, our city administrator.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, we did have a discussion on this, and council had a chance to hear from each other for the first time as to what worked, what didn't work, and what kind of the vision might be going forward. Went back and rewatched the meeting and took some quick notes on here. And what we're really looking for is to maybe just tap off this conversation and see if there's any direction the council can give staff to maybe set up what the next series of town halls should look like, and perhaps a date range as well. And I'd be happy to review some of the items if council feels it's important that I took some really quick but pointed notes on.
Okay, Nathan, you got your hand up first.
So I think, now, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't we wanting to be at the same time?
I heard two different versions.
Okay. All
I
right, what was
heard
the second
have them on the
version?
same day or have them all at the same time, have everybody in here or have breakout groups. And if we're going to do breakout groups, do we do it by ward or by topic? And it seemed like there's a lean towards ward after some of the additional conversation. Having it at different locations would inhibit the ability to video it, but video was valuable.
I think if we're all in the same room, for me, watching the videos helped because I wasn't in the room with all the other wards. If we're all in the same room, I almost feel like that simplifies it. In my opinion, keeping it simple, keeping it for staff also, I mean, that's a lot of areas to cover if we're doing breakout rooms. And Francis, you were discussing breakout rooms, correct? Is that?
If I remember, the conversation with the breakout rooms was if there was something they wanted to talk specifically about that was ward related. We talked about topics, but then everybody wanted to be in every topic.
Yeah.
So it was like, how do you do a topic breakout when everybody wants to be in all the different topics at the same time? So the thought was if we did, everybody together, then if we did a breakout, it makes for a smaller group, and maybe some people would prefer to talk in a conversation with the smaller group as opposed to everybody. And then if you did the breakout, I think the consensus that we were looking at was it's probably better to do it by ward as opposed to by topic, just because everybody wanted to be involved in every topic.
If you wanted to hear everything, it's going to have to be probably down here so they can have the cameras pick it up, and you could do it by wards for the first two wards together here, the next hour, the next wards, and then everything could be recorded. And as you said earlier, then you could see it back from what the other wards were saying. I mean, that's another way of handling it. But trying to set up cameras and all the different breakouts, it's not going to work. It's going to have to be here, basically. It doesn't have to be on this dais, but down there, and you could, at least those cameras there can hit it. Megan?
I don't have any strong feelings, one way or the other. The thing that I like that you're talking about is being more accessible and being closer to. I did feel like we were kind of up here, and it just didn't feel very accessible. So that would be my input.
Does that, Ann?
Oh, I really like the idea of a town hall meeting on one night. I know we have separate wards, but we're one city, and our recent two issues that take place in two different wards, the whole city is concerned about it. And it can be big things like that, or it can be small things like, road construction on Bishop Boulevard or something like that. I guess my feeling is, how much time do we want to ask from our residents, first of all? Can we just have a town hall to say, what do you want to talk about? I think that ward issues would be covered in that. So I just want to be respectful of people's time, both staff and our residents. If we wanted to do breakouts, I don't know that having it on the same night, I just don't know how that would look for continuity and things like that. So I'm amenable to either way. That's the thought that keeps coming to my mind.
Becky?
I agree with the same night being closer. And I think the only benefit I see of having breakouts by ward is that it's kind of educational. Like, it's a moment to say, wait, what ward am I in? And figure that out and meet the people, know who your reps for your ward are. So for me, I would be fine not having the breakout rooms, especially if we could spend some time with showing the map or having a QR code or something for people to scan and figure out where is my ward and ask questions right then. Then I just think we could meet all together. I think Councilmember Parks' comments are well taken.
And the ward representatives could sit together, side by side.
Yeah, getting everybody together, I think, is the way to go on this, and I think there's lots of good models out there for town hall meetings to make sure that people get heard. I think, I'm trying to remember what some of the things that BDS did for some of our larger meetings, was that, like, for the first 10 minutes of the meeting, people scribbled on cards what their issues were, and then somebody sorted and sifted the cards, and they sort of fell into different categories. And you're never going to cover everything, but in an evening meeting, maybe if you could hit 4 or 5 or 6, cross your fingers, categories, that might be some way, because I know there was some conversation about having the people that show up for the meeting select the topics, and I think that's very valid. So yeah, just kind of like the League of Women Voters does it, have everybody get a card when you first step into the room and scribble a notion on it, and maybe have some examples for people to kind of organize their thoughts.
Yes, Becky?
I think that's a great idea. We might even look at some technology, Mentimeter or Jamboard or something like that, so that it's kind of a word cloud. And if we could have the words suggested to them, then that will show up. That would be a quick way to do it, not having to sort through cards, spending a lot of time. There's some technology that can help us.
Okay. Does that, I hear it's one night.
I'm hearing one night, and that's
And I
great.
hear it's down here.
So, well, I want to bring up a concern with down here and see if, how council reacts to that, because as I was talking to the IT crew, it's going to take about half a day to move all the microphones down below so we can record this meeting properly. The camera adjustment shouldn't be too terribly much a problem. But if it's a one-night deal and we take out all the tables and we seat it for max capacity and everybody shows up, and you find yourself back up on the dais just because we need the room, like overflow from tonight, for instance.
But still could use the mics that are down there, I mean, for a little bit. We'll
Okay.
figure out some way.
The other
And
thing is,
we've had to string mics before with cable. I know that, we've plugged in, so.
During
a few of them, but not all
Yeah,
of them.
no, not all of them, no.
So everybody would have to put mics back and forth because we
Well,
don't
you've
have
got
enough.
3 there, and during COVID, we had council members sitting down there, so that we
Yeah.
could have 6.
And-
I'm-
Okay.
I don't
I'll-
know, but
I'll work with
I take
IT.
your point.
That's
I take
just
your
how they
point.
explained it to me. I apologize. I should have asked them more questions. When would you like to do this?
I assume it would be some Tuesday night that in lieu of a regular council meeting, so you're not going to have,
And
okay. Okay, that helps us get that one down. Is October an ideal time? Last ones were held in October.
Do we want to do it 2 times a year? I mean, is that something that's
I
possible?
think we, right now, just aim for one,
Okay.
okay? And we'll figure out what's going to happen after that.
Okay.
Yeah, Pat?
Just one thought that I had is if we do it in an October timeframe, there are a number of us that are going to be up for election in this timeframe, and would that be a problem being either that close to November, or should we be thinking about doing it a
September?
little bit earlier? Just thinking, because there are other things, that go on in that timeframe, so just a thought.
Okay. So we'll try and find a Tuesday in September that will work for you.
A non-meeting night on a Tuesday in September.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that gives me plenty of time to work with the IT and get the technology up to speed that we're going to need.
Okay. All right. Is there any new business to come to council tonight? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?